Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today is your after hours market dive for Tuesday, October 7th. Today we're going to be looking at ES futures, GME, gold futures, NVDA, and some crypto, or not crypto, some Forex, the USD yen. I don't know how people say that symbol. It's too many letters just to say the letters, but whatever. Quick announcement, LDPM has been renamed to Liquidity Triggers, and LDPS has been renamed to Liquidity Status. This way, talking about them is slightly easier, speaking of how many letters, too many letters. And so you'll just see me referring to them as that, and that's all. You can go check out the scripts. I'll put the link in the description below. You can go check them out on TradingView, and let me know what you think. And if you want to sign up, you should sign up. There's a code in the description as well for a little bit of a discount. So, all right, let's get started. We have ES futures on the daily here. We are printing bullish prints despite today being a red day. So we moved negative 0.34%. And it looks like we're just kind of hanging out here on near the supports, and overall liquidity is bullish. This, we don't have to get that much deep into it, but I expect the price and LDP, this liquidity trigger L5, and those are all the same, the L's, like the levels. So I expect, if this to meet the support here at L5, and, we just got to keep an eye out for that liquidity to make sure it doesn't turn bearish or, too bearish. But for now, it's bullish, and so we do expect a little bit of a bounce. If we go and look at what happened today, though, throughout the day, we see things are a little bit messier. So if we do a replay from, say, last night, or, market close yesterday, what do we see? Getting the charts to behave. So we ended with that bearish liquidity. We broke through that L5 support, and we hung out. A little bit of dip buying action kicked in around 11 p.m. A little bit of a bullish attempt, unsuccessful, and then it looks like at 4:45, this bullish liquidity came back through and actually got all the way up to L7 resistance and got swatted down with some pretty, arguably an aggressive, kind of like stacked aggressive ask cascade. So if we turn on all of the lower order ones, yeah, those are. So essentially what we're seeing here is just back to back. So if we go through real quick, because it's kind of interesting. Also, while all this loads, the Discord server now has alerts hooked up to it for liquidity status and liquidity trigger events. So that's cool. Let's see. So we get this bearish liquidity walks in at 10:15. And our first aggressive ask cascade, or the new term for the aggressive ask cascades, are the dip currents, because it causes a dip. I'm going to try to keep that in mind. So we had this first dip current came in at 10:30. And then, so remember, normally what we would expect is the LDPM zoom up, and then in sequence, they come down under price and sort of, as the price then goes doot, 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 and kind of follows that support. So that's what we're expecting to happen. Let's see if that's what happens. So far, yes, because the lower order triggers are pointing downwards. And then kind of, and then not. So then this is our second dip current coming in. Is that a full hour later? So a full hour later, so already my tinfoil hat is fitting nicely. Because if you haven't seen the other video about the short squeeze that happened on ES futures from the other week, I definitely recommend checking it out. But one of the things that caught my attention about that was the very uniform spacing between these very similar events. And in that case, it was, it was like an aggressive ask would walk in, and then kind of test the waters, and then a huge aggressive ask would walk in, and they were kind of very nicely spaced apart. So already my tinfoil hat looks to be getting some use, and it looks like things try to start again, right? So there we go. So we could see when you see the bars, the data change like that using the replay mode, it's because it's showing you how the data looked when the bar started and then how the data looked when the bar ended. And so we see that the bar started in this process of what looked like the scoop coming in, the dip buyers, and then it stopped at noon. Another aggressive ask cascade came in. And so we can see the dip buyers too, each time kind of trying to make it further and further. So they're kind of more and more eagerly moving down to buy some dips. And then an aggressive bid cascade, or I'm sorry, a rip current. So, okay, and then that's it. So pretty interesting on ES futures to have such kind of this dip current complex right here, where we didn't even get like the full morphology of what the dip currents are supposed to look like before another one walked in. So that's pretty interesting. That leaves current conditions, however, pretty bearish. We have, let's see here. Yeah, sorry. And so that does leave current conditions pretty bearish. We do have the lower order triggers doing dip buying here, right? But the liquidity status is still bearish. And so we do expect it to chew through those dip buyers and ultimately go back down. Also worth noting that the LTs are in a bear stack, right? So 7's above 6, which is above 5. So yeah, this is pretty bearish. And then if we do move back to the daily, we're not going to try to spend too much time here, but we do see that, you know, if on the 15 that bearish liquidity really starts to kick things up, we have this support. So I guess it's less than 1% down, but this L5 support is 0.82%. So that'll be, you know, the expectation now then is, you know, over the next day or two, because of the 15-minute, things are bearish, so we're probably going to go down. And then we need to monitor to see if it moves about 1% and check on the daily to see what the daily liquidity status is doing. So, but for now, so short-term turbulence with downside. Hope that on the daily, the bullish liquidity will persevere and will see us ultimately through the rocky situation. On GME, we also have a little bit of a rocky situation. So we do have liquidity is bullish because the candles are blue. And I've decided that this color is blue because it's certainly not green. And so it must be blue. We see that originally we saw, so we were hanging out on support, but we were still bullish. We bounced off of support. And the idea with this bullish liquidity is that you're always going to move up to that next resistance if there is one. While we were doing that, however, on Friday, spot fell down to L7 for support, kept its liquidity bullish. And then on Monday, yesterday, it fell again back through that support. And then we said, okay, I mean, this is not too usual, admittedly, but if we need this support, additional support, we have it here at L5 at 23.95. And it looks like that is where we are headed currently, with the current change today being negative 2.79%. But it is still bullish. And so the interpretation is optimistic that this support will hold. There is some of that, you know, the L3 we can see is above price. So it looks like we actually have this kind of very eager, I guess we can technically call it an aggressive a rip current. And here's the second half, right? So the first one is when the liquidity kind of gets sucked out to move the price. And then we get these profit-taking kind of activities going on as people enter to, you know, take advantage of the big price move. And so that seems to be what's going on right now. And the profit-taking, though, is piling up. So we have L1, 2, 3, 7, and 4 are now all above spot, indicating profit taking. So that is a little concerning, but we have L5 as a support and liquidity, you know, LS liquidity status is still has bullish thoughts, bullish futures in mind. So the expectation is that likely testing L5 support. So there's probably still a little bit down to go. And honestly, we'll probably hover there for a while, but as long as the liquidity remains bullish, the candles are blue, things should rebound slightly. And then, so ultimately, the expectation is always that if it's bullish, we're going to move up to that next level of resistance. And if we move in here to the 15-minute, we see kind of the same unfortunate environment. So LS is still painting conditions as bullish, but we do see that the LTs are in a bear stack. So L7 again is above L6, which is above L5. And this does kind of paint these bullish moments as bull traps. And so, you know, the 15-minute is weak. Even though it does have these bearish prints per LS, but the bullish rather, right? So, but this tells us that it's going to get to this next resistance, which is at 24.55, and it's got to make it through that to get to the next resistance up here at L6, which is at 25.05, and then if bullish liquidity continues, then it'll make it up to L7 at 26.02. And what do these price points look like in terms of, right? So essentially, the 15-minute is showing us the kind of this section, right? So within the, like between the L5 support and the L7 resistance, when we zoom in, we see that this is the situation. Not hopeless. It is bullish per LS, but we can see that the daily journey to that point of support is a series of 3 distinct stages that are worth keeping an eye out for us on GME. So I would definitely probably monitor the 15-minute because it's got to get through this environment before we can kind of go back to the daily and say, okay, the spot and liquidity have recovered to L7, right? And then if liquidity remains bullish, then we can start anticipating movement back to the 29.61 area. So it looks like the important time frame to keep an eye out for is this 15-minute, right? The hero's journey involves these 3 stages right here. So I would keep an eye out there. Moving on to gold, we see gold's bullish run is indeed running. This is gold futures. Right off the bat, we see that LS is painting the candles blue, and so we know it's bullish, and so we know it's most likely going to go up. And then another thing I always look for is just to see where the profit takers are, and that's why I leave L3 on the chart. And we see it's not really, it's still below spot. So the profit taking is kind of increasing as this distance narrows. But overall, it's not, you know, the true moment is when it starts really getting above the price. But for right now, it's reaching up on the daily, but it looks to be not there yet. So that's bullish all around. If we move to the 15, what happened throughout the day? We see a little bit of a bear trap here. Let's go ahead and watch that. So from the end on Monday, so we have these, and this is that stage that we kind of always look for as the spot approaches the support, and we look out for that. If the bearish liquidity comes through, we see that it did and broke through, but we got a nice little bullish candle not too long after, and then things hung out around the L5 support. And then what happened? Then we get a nice little aggressive rip current at 6 p.m. on Monday, and then another one an hour and some later. Let's see what it does. Does it do anything for us? So we do get a little bit of price, but not much. It looks like support is really pulling its weight here, right? Price keeps hovering around that L5 support. And then at 1 in the morning, which, you know, who wasn't up trading gold futures at 1 in the morning? The liquidity status went bearish, so we broke through that support, fell back to L6, did a little bounce, get a nice little aggressive. I'm just gonna, for this video, I'm just gonna keep calling aggressive bid cascade. I'm gonna go practice in the mirror. So So I can call them the rip currents, as they are now called. But we do get a rip current here. It takes a while, a little delayed to get this. I guess it's only a 15-minute, but by 8:30, liquidity is now bullish. And a little bit of a pretty hefty sell there, and then some profit taking going on, but still maintaining this bullish liquidity. Pretty interesting. So yeah, a little bit of a bear trap here in the pre-market, but current conditions are bullish, and it looks like the profit taking has at least calmed down some. So SPY is likely to move over this L3 resistance here shortly. So this is bullish all around. Even though gold is obviously doing some remarkable things, it looks poised to do more remarkable things. Moving along to NVIDIA, we see that once again, the liquidity is bearish, and we've broken through that L5 support, which happened on Friday. And we see that L3 we've been watching as it zooms up, and I think it is now officially above spot, ever so slightly, but above. And that's just going to add more downside pressure as the profit takers go and start eagerly selling. So for this, the expectation is pretty straightforward. Since liquidity status is painting the candles red because liquidity is bearish, then we expect movement to that next support, which is at L7 at $166.11, which is currently 10% down. So it might take a minute to get there, but as long as these candles are red, then that is where price is likely to go. So that about 10% down on NVIDIA looks to be underway, as I would describe it. If we look at the 15-minute, yeah, look at these I call these devil horns. Or it's just like these kind of like aggressive dip currents that come in, but in unison. Batman or devil horns, although you can decide which one, how you feel on the day. But so liquidity is bearish, and so this was a bull trap right here. So we see 765, and then liquidity status was bullish, so that mismatch tells us it's a bull trap, and things resolved pretty aggressively as they typically do. And now liquidity is overall just bearish, and so downside is expected. And so it looks like from the 15 view, we see downside, and from the daily view, we also see downside. And on the daily, we have this target of 10% down. So that seems to be the reasonable plan here. And moving right along, I figured it'd be interesting to look at some, I keep wanting to say crypto because it's the only word that's kind of associated with currency in my head, but this is real currency. And we can see the liquidity is now bullish. It's maintaining its bullish liquidity. And so up is expected. If we go to the 15-minute, we see this. Look at this. Ooh, we should watch it from. That is a very nice aggressive, very nice rip current. So we were in this bear trap from about last Friday. And then we're working against the resistance there at L5. I don't want to miss so a little bit of an ask walks in. I forget where the aggressive bid was. Oops. Oh, okay, there it is. So at 5 o'clock on Sunday, the aggressive bid, the rip current kicks in. Very cool. So then let's see. Let's put on all of the LTs. So there we go. So we have all of the LTs are, you saw them all just switch immediately in unison. And so then we have the lower order ones start kicking up, indicating the profit taking is going on. And notice that they happen in sequence. So they happen in sequence. And again, that just tells us that there's profit taking going on. But liquidity maintains its bullish stance. So it looks like it slowly digests through it. And we see they start switching a little bit, but then we got bearish liquidity, came in on Monday. We now enter this bear trap because the LT stack is bullish. We have 5 above 6 above 7, but LS is indicating bearish, so that mismatch tells it's a bear trap. Looks like we recover our bullish liquidity around Monday. For the most part, a little poke through, a little bit of a bid walked in. Looks like we broke above those newfound resistances, and we could see the profit taking really kind of kicking in that bearish liquidity. But we chew through it. L6 acts as a great support, and we actually do get this rip current here about 2 p.m. today. We can see all the LTs deflect downwards, and then we see that characteristic, the fanning and slash the wave. It's what I call it. It's what it looks like to me. It looks like if you were to drop something in a pond and then it splashes up afterwards. That's kind of what that looks like to me. So we do have profit taking going on. So near term pressure, downside pressure, but we have good supports here at L6 at 151, and liquidity is still maintaining its bullish stance. So that's pretty nifty, and that's a pretty cool, just a very nice, we just kind of, it's almost like art. Very bloop, if you drop something in and then it's like it splashes up afterwards. So we can see here in the grand scheme of things, what's happening here is the exact same that's happening here. It's just that it's scaled slightly differently, and so the expectation is the same. We'll likely flatline as the profit taking kicks in, but as long as the liquidity is bullish, then we should just bounce if we hit the support. If it turns a little bearish, then we got to worry about breaking through that the support and then deal with it from there. But all right, that's it for today. Did we actually? I guess we should look at Bitcoin. Okay, last one. Since you're pulling my leg, what do we have? I don't like all of these on all the time. They're useful, but I'm a simple guy. That's what I like. So we have, what do we have? So we had that aggressive bid that walked in last week on Wednesday. We chatted about, and things are still bullish. And we have a support nearby at 116, which, as we've learned, I'm terrible at guesstimating how far that is. So I can never find, I can't describe to you the rage that moves through me because of how often I have to use these tools, and then how not often my brain remembers where TradingView has put them. Okay, so that's a 5% down to the next support if we need it. But if liquidity maintains its bullish stance, we'll probably just bounce back up. But if we start getting bearish prints, as it looks like we're going to meet that support, we need to kind of reevaluate things. But currently the outlook is up because liquidity is bullish, and we know it's bullish because the candles are blue, and they're blue because LS has painted them blue. If we go to the 15-minute, we have a little bit of so we have this nice bull stack that started on Monday. It looks like it got to L7 resistance and got swatted down. We were pretty successful on the supports here for a while. And then that changed at 6:30 p.m. when things became bearish. We broke through. We can see some dip buying came in. Looks like it helped things along. Got things up to the L6 resistance, and then it got swatted down again. And we went down. Looks like we have more profit buying coming on, and that has moved us to L5. We'll likely move above L5. I just feel like that's the name of, how things normally work recently. And so we do have a near-term tentative because so if spot moves above this L5 resistance and it maintains its bullish prints, then we'll be in a bull trap because the L5s are, I think that these are tinier than they're supposed to be. We'll see. But because it's bullish, so we know we're going to move up to that next resistance, which is currently here at L6, which is 1.5% up. And then the name of the game will be, because it's a bull trap, we have to be extra sensitive that it's just not going to randomly revert. Last time it did it off of the L6 resistance. The time before it did it off the L7 resistance. And so definitely worth keeping an eye out as we approach that what is it, 124.065 mark. And that's truthfully if it makes it above this L5 resistance here. But you know, I feel like it will. But it is struggling. It hasn't done it. It hasn't done it cleanly, right? So okay, this is a bit longer than the normal after hours market dive, but I thought I would show you, or you know, go through a few more broader market things, just because there is quite a bit going on, and things are changing. We have this scanner here, which is pretty cool. I'm a fan of it. We see liquidity has turned bullish recently, right at market close, and I've been keeping track of how long these, on the 15-minute, how long these intervals last, and you know, you got 20 hours, 14 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and so this bullish liquidity should last us into the night. And so overall in crypto land, things do look pretty bullish, and so I do kind of impose that upon this Bitcoin chart, continually, you know, in furtherance of my expectation that it will make it above L5 resistance. So, okay, pretty mixed environment, right? Little 15, little ES is a little weak on the near term. We have a downside target on the daily. Things are definitely still bearish, as we can see. GME is looking rocky, I'm not gonna lie. It is, even if it, you know, makes it to this L5 up here, because of the liquidity is bullish, so we do expect that to happen. You know, it's then this whole process is going to be a bull trap, right? Just like we saw. So as it moves up, as it, you know, performs its hero's journey to try to reclaim, you know, prior spots as seen on the daily, we do get, there is some, you know, I would keep a close eye on this if I had any sort of near-term things that might not work out well if it doesn't do, if our hero here doesn't make it through these, it's, you know, Herculean tasks. So definitely keeping a close eye on this will be what I would be doing. Gold is looking fantastic. NVDA is looking the opposite of fantastic. And like we said on Bitcoin, things look like they're definitely going to progress as they have been, but definitely keeping a close eye on that rapid reversion of the bear trap or bull trap, as they are often quick to, you know, turn their heels. So, okay guys, that's it for today. Thank you for joining. My name is Justin, and I'll see you guys next time.